can never stop dogs from barking. Believe me, I know I have too many of them. But what you can do is not let it bother you and not react to it. Everything that you are seeing launching on the 12th is the product of disciplined people committing chunks of their professional careers to get it done. There's nothing here that was fly by night or arbitrary. Some of these designs and specifications were started in 2018, and they're now realizing it today. This was not accidental. This was not like, well, let's just figure it out. And the people who did these things have the luxury of having made many mistakes in their career with mainstream programming languages and recognizing that it was perhaps not such a good idea to do it one way or the other way and cleaning that up. And also the hindsight of the things we've learned from the failures in the Ethereum ecosystem and the successes in the Ethereum ecosystem. That doesn't mean that come September 12th, every single thing is completely done, it's perfect, and we flip a switch and then suddenly Cardano is now a bigger ecosystem than Ethereum. Any more so than any magic piece of technology suddenly wins. The transistor, for example, took many years to beat the vacuum tube. But when it did, we never looked back. We never moved beyond. We never moved in any sense of the word to that arc. We just said transistor is the way to go. And that's exactly the same situation here. This model, in our view, will outcompete the account model. It needs infrastructure to do so, and that's being built, some by us, some by partners, some by you, the community. And if we're doing our right job, there's proper funding and attention and mindset and incentives, which is why Catalyst exists with almost $1 billion of value inside of it. And development challenges are going to saturate the pipeline of Catalyst for quite some time, and why there's a big ecosystem of infrastructure providers to continue building these things up. And just like the transistor versus the vacuum tube, over time, it's going to outcompete that model because it's built better for the movement of identity, value, and state. That is what UTXO excels at. There was enormous wisdom in the design of Bitcoin for that model. But it is a super complicated programming language question, how to get enough expressiveness in that model while preserving the safety of that model. And that is the core accomplishment of extended UTXO. I firmly believe, had this model existed and was in academic literature at the time of the creation of Bitcoin, Bitcoin script would be Plutus and Bitcoin's accounting model would be extended UTXO. I firmly believe that. And why not? Because you get all the safety and structure that Bitcoin provides, but then you get equivalent levels of expressiveness and programmability that Ethereum provides. It's the best of both worlds in that respect. And that's effectively what is shipping on the 12th. Managing expectations, not everything will be completely ready on the 12th. We've all known that all along. For example, there's going to be multiple iterations of the development experience in the application backend, and design patterns and canonical contracts and other things have to be written and displayed, and then programmers have to be educated and all these other things. But smart contracts are here. Make no mistake. That's ready to go. It's like saying, well, Ethereum is not ready until Solidity is completely done and the entire Solidity ecosystem is done. No, Ethereum was ready the moment the Ethereum virtual machine was running, because at that moment, people could run smart contracts. And similarly, Cardano's smart contract revolution has begun the moment that Plutus is ready and the extended UTXO model is in our ledger and we're running smart contracts on the system. Everything else is implementation details, iteration, and infrastructural improvements. And that's where we're at now. And that's a long tail, and it's a parallel tail, and there's going to be strong differences of opinion. For example, DC Spark is one of the prominent companies in our ecosystem. They have very strong differences of opinion, and thus they're representing those with tools that they're building and models that they're building, which will run in parallel with this model. Both will coexist. Some developers will be on our side, some developers will be on their side, but that's the beauty of a decentralized ecosystem and a vibrant ecosystem. And if we've done it right, they can coexist together and they can learn from each other and interoperate with each other. There are others, for example, mutual knowledge systems with the Glow language and what they're proposing with the account emulation. They have a difference of opinion as well. And that's going to coexist with what we're launching here today. It just take a little bit longer for that to roll its way out. But it is running in parallel to all of these different ideas, and there's dozens more that are coming down the pipe. And as a successful ecosystem, we'll see the same. Just like there were master theses from Chalmers to compile Idris to EVM, just like there was Serpent and Mutan and other languages that were written in addition to Solidity for Ethereum. Great ecosystems. Java, for example, Scala compiles to it, Kotlin compiles to it, Clojure compiles to it, Frege compiles Haskell to the Java virtual machine. Great ecosystems admit diversity and give you the ability to build specialized tools for specialized business. But there's one core that all of these things can operate on, and that core is what is launching on the 12th, which is why it's the single most important update since Shelley to Cardano, and it's why it's taken so long to get that core right. We think we did it right. We did our homework. A lot of heart and soul and sweat and tears went into this, and it's a damn exciting time, and it's a damn exhausting time because there's just so much that we've had to do to get here. And I deeply admire the leadership of Memo Chakravarty and Michael Payton-Jones and Yant Miller and the others on that team. They really stepped up and did remarkable things and stuck to it and kept chipping away at it. And as a CEO, I was always pushing them harder and harder, trying to get more, better, faster. And they never gave up. And now you, the community, are going to be doing a lot. And I expect fully on Monday, lots of cool stuff on the mainnet. And I expect fully as we get closer to the conference, more and more things. And as we close out the year, more and more things. And each quarter, we'll see extraordinary growth. And just like the transistor versus the vacuum tube, eventually you see that hockey stick. And I firmly believe this will become the dominant model. I also believe that it is worthwhile, if Bitcoin wants to stay relevant, to start taking what we've done here seriously. And we'll at some point write a Bitcoin improvement proposal for extended UTXO for Bitcoin. Now, I doubt, given the culture of that ecosystem, that will be done. But if you look, there's a strong intention to do things like this with the existence of Simplicity and Jets and BitML and so forth. So I'm proud of it. It's the privilege of a lifetime to have been able to innovate this much in a single product. Nothing was borrowed. Everything is original. A new network stack, new accounting model, new programming languages, new consensus model, completely new source code, new transaction model, new serialization formats, new APIs, everything. It's completely bespoke. The last time this was ever really done in the space to this scale was with Ethereum, and it shows. And that infrastructure is starting to reach a high level of maturity, and we're starting to actually see a lot of utilization of it. All right. So thank you, everyone, for listening. I really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll have a good watch party on September 12th. No turning back now. The update proposal has been submitted. So take it or leave it. The Alonzo era is here. Until next, everyone. Hi, everyone. This is Charles Hoskinson broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. Today is September 7th. Let's make sure my broadcast is looking good. Yeah, it looks good. All right. Today is September 7th, and I want to make a very quick video to tell you guys that we submitted the update proposal. The HFC event is in flight. So for many of you who follow Cardano, you are aware that how updates are done, that once a proposal has been signed, the proposal takes effect at the epic rollover. The next one is going to be at 21:45 UTC on Sunday the 12th, which is about 3:45 Mountain Standard Time, PM Mountain Standard Time. So it's been triggered, submitted, the rocket's in the air. Either it reaches orbit or it doesn't. So no going back now. That means we're all a go for Alonzo. The Alonzo hard fork is going to happen on the 12th. So I will have a watch party. Look for our tweets and our communication channels. We'll all be there together live, and we'll witness the rollover. And that means that you'll be able to start submitting Plutus smart contracts to the Cardano blockchain. Now, there's an enormous amount of work that has to be done post-launch because there's lots of surrounding infrastructure and design patterns and abstractions and templates and dApps that have to be built. And like any development ecosystem, that has to happen. That said, the underlying infrastructure to run those things is now operational and running, not on a test net, running on a mainnet, which means that if you have Plutus code for your application come the 12th, and you can submit it and get it running, it will run on the mainnet. Okay, so smart contracts are here. Congratulations. We have a few toy smart contracts we wrote for fun. One is for the Poly Market Challenge, just to demonstrate that. And then also we're going to do some other things that I think you guys are going to enjoy. It's going to be a great day and a great moment. A lot of work to do on the Plutus application backend. Beta will be available on the 10th, and there's more to do beyond that. But we anticipate that throughout the totality of this month, most of that development work will be done. Then there's a lot of open questions about, for example, templates and abstractions to help application developers decide how they want to tackle concurrency in their application, and a litany of other things that those will be ongoing developments that people will deploy and use. So the underlying infrastructure doesn't have to change to accommodate those. Those are abstractions and software and things that are constructed above, and design practices that are constructed above to enable those things, just like you saw with Solidity and the EVM and these other things. You don't necessarily need to change the underlying infrastructure to build a library or these types of things. If you're doing it right, you shouldn't have to do that. So it's a major moment for us, smart contracts, and it's important to always take a look at that moment within the context of broader things that need to be done. Now that developers will be using Cardano, there's going to be a feedback loop that's happening. Dozens, if not hundreds of questions every day on the Stack exchanges, lots of people talking about things in Discord. And then going past the summit in October, we're going to make sure that there's a support program in place to help developers with their applications and make sure that they're following best practices and these types of things. And that's one of the reasons why we brought in so many different development partners. And we'll work out some deals there, and the foundation will work out some things as well. And we'll kind of figure all those things out. Now, what will happen is that certain things are rough edges, as with any development ecosystem. And there's going to have to be a cleanup HFC event to remove those rough edges or add in some more functionality that we'd like to see. So we're rolling a lot of that up to the next two HFC events. One is Babbage, and that'll happen before the end of the year. And then the next one will be in the first quarter of next year sometime. And these are adding some more functionality, and they may add some things to make it a little easier to develop. But then there are also optimizations, some improvements in compression, these types of things to actually get better on-chain stuff. Obviously, as apps are running, cost model will be analyzed and other things will be analyzed. A lot of optimizations need to be done there. But, it's more iterative than revolutionary in that respect. Now, we'll have a lot more to say about the Basho era and how we're going to achieve great scalability in the strategies that we've been using at the summit. And we'll also have a lot more to say about the Volterra era, about how do we transition the project to be an organism that's self-sustaining, resilient, and self-evolving, that's completely run by the bottom up, the community in that respect. And what tools and techniques can we utilize to accommodate that? So attend the summit, and of course that'll be there. But it's really an amazing thing to be here. I'm exhausted. We're all exhausted, to be honest with you. It's been the busiest 90 days, I think, in the company's history. And so much has happened. So many moving pieces have been encumbered. So many T's had to be crossed and I's had to be dotted. And it's truly a remarkable achievement. I want to thank all of the stateful operators, the Plutus pioneers, and the community for working with us, and all the people who wanted to innovate, like Miniswap and others. I perhaps was a bit harsh in my prior videos about things. It's great to see people trying to do things well, or at least try to push out there and get things done. Any normal test net, there'd be no issue. But we live in a hyper-polarized space where there's competitive incentives for people to take anything and scale it out and use it to brutally attack a project. For example, just today, there was a tweet from Bram Cohen, the founder of Chia, and a person I deeply admire. He's creator of BitTorrent, who said that the extended UTXO model is completely unnecessary, and that his Chia thing with Chia Lisp is the end all be all, and that we all don't know what we're doing. You're going to see a lot of that, and it's completely unnecessary. It's like saying that Java is completely unnecessary. Only C++ is the true language, or C++ is unnecessary. Only C# is the right language. Every development ecosystem is a collection of trade-offs and assumptions about how people intend to use it, build with it, and maintain their software lifecycle. We looked at the design space of the smart contract space, and we brought in people who have built programming languages before or worked on programming languages. Like Phil Wadler, for example, was one of the creators of the Haskell programming language and has the advantage of 36 years of hindsight of what was done well, what wasn't done well. We also looked at all of the smart contract languages and the Ethereum development paradigm very closely, and we identified a bunch of core areas that we felt were areas that needed a lot of improvement and polish. The underlying infrastructure that's turning on today is like the assembly of that. And there's certainly a lot of great tooling that already exists, and tons more will be constructed very quickly to accommodate that. But it's an underlying virtual machine for the dreams of all the developers who come thereafter. Now, there's going to be differences of opinion, and those will be represented in three different ways. One, it'll be represented by different tools, techniques, and design patterns in libraries. Two, for example, with JavaScript, you can write JavaScript in an imperative way, or you can write it in a functional way. And there's languages like Ramda, for example. It's actual design paradigm, a language paradigm in JavaScript to write functional JavaScript code that ends up looking a lot like Haskell, but still JavaScript. Okay, so using the language, but using it differently. Two, there are going to be new languages. It's entirely possible to write a compiler for Scala, for example, to Plutus Core, or other such things. And then within that paradigm, also layers that things run on. For example, the guys over at Mutual Knowledge Systems have a way of emulating an account layer on top of extended UTXO. So they're doing that for us, and we're just working out the details of where and when that can come. And if you want to program in that paradigm, that might be easier. It's kind of like these JavaScript frameworks like Meteor or React or Angular or things of that nature, where you build an emulation layer. Same for Dart and Polymer and so forth. Okay, so those things will come, and they'll bring in different types of developers than the opinion developers. And then finally, the computing model that we've chosen, extended UTXO, for whatever reason, people may view that there are differences that need to be resolved with different computing models. And that's why the sidechains exist, Yella and EVM. We built the ecosystem for all of these things, also always keeping our eye on the prize about scalability. So we said, okay, how do you outsource computation? How do we make sure that that's possible? And that's why we built extended UTXO with Ouroboros hand in glove, because Ouroboros emits the growth of stake pool operators, which means you have a large set of people to do distributed computations in parallel. And there's tons of paradigms that exist. The one we've chosen is Hydra, with both the head and the tail protocol. And there's all kinds of things that can be done with Hydra to enable that distributed computing, so that you don't go from a replicated system that has a heartbeat and it's very focused on a very rigorous ordering. You go to a far more distributed system with different trust models, and smart contract developers have access to that. We built this model for these things to plug right on in, and they work. We also built this model for extensibility. For example, the ability to add sidechains, and we built this model to add domain-specific languages like Marlowe, for example, where a lot of complexity can be hidden from the user, from the developer, and they can just focus on the core business logic and solving that business logic. So the underlying infrastructure that's deploying on the 12 is really the most foundational and abstract thing we could think of to enable this entire vision that we have. And what's nice is because of its existence, we can now work on that entire vision in parallel. So there are different teams for each of these things. Some people worrying about improving the developer experience. Some people worrying about getting Hydra done and augmenting and upgrading it. Some people worrying about how do we bring the stake pool operators into this. Some people worrying about how do you get sidechains done and get those done in a timely manner so that they can be added and augment the system. Other people worried about building infrastructure like an account abstraction or these types of things. And other people worried about formal verification of smart contracts so that the applications that you write can adhere to certain standards and be certified. All of those things are now open and possible and will become iterations and just have their release cycles and come out just like you expect any other part of the software, the Cardano ecosystem. The Node software, Adrestia, Daedalus, Yoroi, DB-Sync, the Rosetta APIs, the GraphQL infrastructure, et cetera, all of those things. The network libraries, the formal specifications, all of those things. You just get them every time a release happens. And now there's a whole set of new things that are being added to those things that are now evolving at their own pace. That's why this is such a significant release. A lot of people ask, well, what can you do as of the 12th? Well, a lot. You have smart contract capabilities. It's limited to the skill, imagination, and tooling of the developer. You issue a token, you can go beyond the NFT now. In short order, it should be fairly trivial to get a stable coin on the system. You can start doing all kinds of advanced spending policies on your NFT. If you want to put royalties on an NFT, these types of things can be done. And hundreds of other ideas and applications are now possible as a consequence of what is shipping on the 12th. Now, some of those things will be harder to do because of the nature of the maturity of the tooling. Some of those things will be trivial and easy to do because of the design choices that we had. For example, issuing a token on Cardano didn't even require Alonso. And that's a magical, amazing thing that's worked its way out. It's why we've become one of the dominant systems for NFTs because it's so easy to issue tokens on the system. The same for metadata and so forth. Okay, but the point is that don't like it, come back in a month, and it's evolved quite a bit. And don't like it, come back in a quarter, it's evolved even more. Don't like it, come back in a few quarters, and you actually have different paradigms as well now. You can use different computing models. That's all possible because of what's being presented here today. And we never once compromised the evidence-based nature of how we designed the system. There is a chain of evidence from the formal specifications back to the scientific papers, all the way to the code. And that chain of evidence demonstrates very clearly the capabilities of the system. In the beginning, it was very slow and painful to do this because it's never been done before in our industry and in a lot of startups. It's never been done before. Now it's gotten so efficient that we're really starting to see high velocity and speed up. And there's certainly certain areas that are definitely ripe for improvement. For example, optimization and performance tuning. It's now going to become an increasingly higher priority as we exit the year. But that process is working, and it's discovered plenty of bugs and issues along the way that we're able to proactively correct, or we're able to get to the root cause significantly faster because of it. Ultimately, what that means is when we do these types of releases, we have so much more confidence in the underlying software. There still can be issues and bugs, but the set of those issues and bugs is greatly diminished and reduced because that's what you deserve. This has always been a marathon. And this has always been a game of years and decades, not weeks and months. There's always going to be a flavor of the week that somehow has great marketing and capabilities and surges high into the sky until the wax on their wings melts off and they fall. Cardano has always been about this idea of an ecosystem that moves systematically, methodically, and with great wisdom and foresight. The extended UTXO model inherits the wisdom and foresight of Satoshi 12 years ago. That idea that came into our industry, battle tested at $1 trillion level. And it made that model better. And its existence means that we've opened up a whole litany of new capabilities while preserving a model that is very amenable to privacy and scalability, and preservation of a system that's sustainable. That's a very powerful thing. And you'll hear the flavor of the week complain and say this and say that. There's an old saying, the dog barks and the caravan moves on. You can never stop dogs from barking. Believe me, I know I have too many of them. But what you can do is not let it bother you.